What's up, everybody? Welcome to Secret the Unknown. Sorry, it took a little while. I'm trying to set up practice and trying to get everything going and sit down so I can get this stuff straight up and get everything fixed and organized so that way it's all done. But I appreciate everybody coming out and checking this out. This is going to be a good one. I've been sitting here going along, getting everything situated, writing some stuff down. Some notes about stuff that I'm going to be going over. Obviously, this is episode 27. We're going to be talking about the book Giant. If you haven't read this book or looked it up, it is one of the books that is goes right along with the book of Enoch. It talks a little bit about the book of Genesis. That's the Bible, which we get from the ancient Sumerian text of creation. And let me check something out real quick. No, my internet's being great. I'm gonna look up something real quick. Yeah, we're going to get into the antediluvian civilizations that were living before the flood, that were here before even the creation of what we now know as Homo sapiens. Because Homo sapiens sapien, we are, there were still people that were living here on the planet that were genetically modified. And I'm going to get into all that. We're going to jump into it. I'm getting ahead of myself. I've got my brain is just like going. And as I said before, thank you all for coming. I appreciate y'all so much. You guys are the best. And let's jump into it and get into it, shall we? All right. We are back. Thank you guys for joining me again. Like I said, this is episode 27 of Secret of the Unknown. We're going to be talking about the Book of Giants and getting a little bit into the Book of Enoch. Also, we are going to be focusing on the pre-antediluvian civilizations that were here before the flood. Okay, and the civilizations that were here before the creation of Adam and Eve. All right, because you got to remember something. What we're about to get into is really heavy. It's going to be controversial for some people because some people are going to be like, hey, man, you're talking all this stuff about, stuff that's not God's word or what I believe in. I'm not here to force anything on you. As I've always said in any of my podcasts, if you watch this is just information that I'm dropping out and putting out to you. I would like you guys to just research it, look into it, say, hey, what's going on? Let me look at what he's saying and just take what I'm saying and research it, look into it, figure it out for yourself. Look and say, oh man, this is something that I didn't even know before. And once you open your mind and you have an open mind about what's going on outside of this box that everybody has been, focused on. Everybody's just been uh, just everything's just been crammed down our throats for a long time about how we got here, who created us, and when in fact there is so much. I mean, just how old human beings are, and civilizations that you know they're for a certain time, and we're starting to find out and uncover that that narrative is not fitting to what the archaeologists and what the ancient texts that are predating what we know are telling us. So we're going to jump into that a little bit, and we're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to go over some videos, some narratives that are going to sum up everything in a nutshell, and just talk about it and discuss it. And please, if you can, we can chat on here on YouTube. And unfortunately, I still can't even get on. I think it's my Facebook. Yeah, I can't even get on my Facebook because I don't even have enough subscribers to this new channel. And I guess you got to have like over 50 or 100. Yeah, so you can't go live on Facebook yet. Boo. So what I'm wanting to do here is, man, I don't know if YouTube changed their, because like usually like you could just go on here and just shut off, shut off the audio, but I guess I'll just have to turn it down. Whatever. All right, we'll just go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna be on here. If you guys want to comment on YouTube, please feel free to. On the Secret of the Unknown, obviously we got people on here that are already jumping on. I can't see who it is, so if you want to let me know who you are, just put your name in the comments. Say, hey, what's up, Raul? Thank you for the show. Whatever you guys want to put on there, but we're gonna have a good discussion today. So jumping into it. All right, let me change this music because this music's kind of too howdy-ish for me. I'm gonna do something chill real quick, down tempo. Let's see what's up with that one. Nah. I want to get something that's like, yeah, see, this is all craziness. But yeah, that'll work. Can you hear it? So what I want to do is this, okay, is get into this discussion of the narrative that we have all been told. All right. And as I said before, please, if you're on and you're watching and you guys are checking it out, please like and subscribe. I want to put it on Facebook, but that's not the point. My point is to try and get as many people on this YouTube podcast that I can to subscribe and like to the videos, because I'm getting people that are just watching it on Facebook because it's a lot easier. But so they can check it out and look at it when they get a chance. But if you do get a chance to, please like and subscribe to the channel. As I said before, this discussion and this topic started at an early age for me. If you don't know, like I said, I was raised in a very traditional Christian home. I was raised by, my mother and father were both pastors. And of course, we have all heard the narrative of the flood story. We've heard the narrative of the creation of Adam and Eve. And that's it. As I got older, I started thinking to myself, as I started hearing the story and I started, thinking about it, everybody remembers in the book of Genesis when it talks about Cain killing Abel and Cain fleeing because God cast him, he shunned him. And he told God, look, if I leave, these people are going to kill me because they know that I'm not from them. I'm not a tribe from them. I'm an outsider. And if I do this, they're going to kill me, man. I can't do this. You're sending me to my death, which obviously he just got done slaying his brother because of his jealousy. God, and this is what it says. Remember, in Genesis, it doesn't say Yahweh. And we're going to get into this later. It does not say Yahweh. And there's a point to that. It says that God came down and was telling Cain, asking him, where's your brother? Your brother's blood is crying out from the earth to me. God knew what was going on. He was trying to hide it. He finally got it out of him. Yes, I killed my brother because you love him and you honor him more than me. God says, for this, I'm going to banish you. You're going to leave and never return. And you're going to suffer and have to live and dwell in the lands away from your family. And he's telling him, I can't do this. God says, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark you. I'm going to place this mark on you so that way people know that I marked you and I'm protecting you. And if anybody touches or does anything to you, they're going to answer to me. I found that very interesting because it says that Cain left and went into and dwelt and married a woman in the land of Nod. Okay? And I started thinking about this because I was like, wait a minute. If Cain was sent out and they were the first descendants of people on the land in Genesis, the creation that God made, okay, who were these other people that were living out on the earth? I mean, if there was people that were still on the earth that were created, who made them? Because the Bible doesn't say nothing about these other people. You don't hear anything in the Hebrew Bible about these other people and where they came from. So it talks about he went there and he married his wife, and that's where you get the descendants, the Canaanites, the descendants of Cain. All right. Now, it says that in the book of Enoch, it talks about how there were 200 angels that looked down on the creation on the earth and started lusting after the women and the daughters and the women of man. Okay, so these angels said, let's go down there and let's take these women and do what we want with them. But the angels got together and said, okay, wait a minute. We surely are going to get in trouble if we do this, so we need to make a pact. And right then and there, the angels, all right, let me get this up. I'm going to pull up this list. Okay, these angels decided to make this pact, go down into earth. They started taking women for themselves, mating with them, fornicating with them, having children with these women. And we see that these different angels that came down, okay, to mate with these women, each of these angels had abilities that they taught. All right, let me see. Okay, in Genesis 6 it says, we learn that the primary cause of the flood was the emergency of a new insidious threat to God's plan of redemption. Okay, and then this is going off of biblical scripture, biblical narratives. This is Genesis 6:1. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born unto them. Verse 2, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves. Now, we know that the offspring of this mating between these angels and these women were called Nephilim. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the narration of what this guy is saying on here, because it's, like I said, it's based on biblical stuff, and it starts talking about Satan and all this whole jizzle jazzle, but we're going to get into that later about the true narrative of ancient texts and where the biblical scholars and writers got their narratives from and just switched wordings and added things to it to better fit what it meant to them. And it says Genesis 3:15, and we will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. So one thing that I thought too, I was like, you've got these 200 angels, right? And these angels are, if I'm talking biblical sense now, these angels came down from heaven, okay? They had this thought in their head of lust and sin and deception and lies, enough that they went against their master, the all-powerful creator, and said, you know what, man? Them women are looking good. I know we're going to get in trouble for this, but let's go ahead and do it. If a servant is made to serve and is pure of heart and is eternal, uncorruptible, listen to what I'm saying now, because this is what I'm thinking. Let me know what you're thinking too. How is it that they are able to be filled with these corruptible thoughts against their they knew? They even said, we're going to get in trouble. We are going to get in trouble. This is going to get us killed. We need to make a pact right now and all go down together, because when the creator finds out what we're doing, this is going to be all bad. So we see that the angels go down, they do their business, and the offspring of this mating are the Nephilim, the mighty men of old, it says in the old scriptures. Okay, and the watchers, the angels that are on earth, because they lose everything, they stay there because they can't go back to heaven, the realm between above the earth. Okay, because the difference between the biblical narrative and the ancient Sumerian and the Antediluvian story, the Eridu Genesis tablet, okay, it does not give a name to God, but we do know that the God's names of the Sumerians, who created man in their image, by genetically altering men, okay? Now, the creation of man in the Bible was adapted from this tablet. How this happened is because you got to remember something. Narratives were passed down through the lineage. Now you get all the way to where the Hebrew narrative took that story that was passed down through Abraham and his blood lineage, because you got to remember something. These people were nomadic people. There was no Israel. Okay? The blood lineage from Abraham, the story of him on, was where you get this whole God's chosen people narrative, yada, yada, yada. But before that, in the Eridu Genesis, it says, in Mesopotamian religion and literature, ancient Sumerian epic primarily concerned with the creation of the world, the building of cities, and the flood narrative. According to this epic, the universe was created out of the primeval sea, and the gods were born. The deities fashioned man from clay to cultivate the ground, care for the flocks, perpetuate the worship of the gods. Now, these gods that they're talking about are the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki gods of Enki, who was the god of the earth, and his dominion was on the earth. That was what his job, his tasking was the earth and the sea. Okay, that's what he did. And he cared for the people. Enlil, his brother, was the god of the sky and the air. He didn't care. He was just like, break them, make them do what we want them to do, just have them work, cultivate this ground for the gold, make them work. That was his narrative. He wanted man, because you got to remember something. In this ancient text, it talks about the Anunnaki coming to Earth because their planet, Nibiru, which, if you look into it, this planet actually exists. And the cycle of its return is about to happen within the next 6 years. I think it's 6 or 8 years. And this is where you get these drastic cataclysms that end up happening on these cycles that we see. Like I'm saying, folks, listen to what I'm telling you, because this stuff gets really deep. You're only looking at one narrative, okay? I know it's mind-boggling, and it's like, man, this is like way out there. I get it, because I felt the same way. And as soon as you start looking into everything, it lines up and it makes sense. These gods said, look, let's make man in our image by forming him from the dust of the ground, the elements of the ground, of the earth. Because if anybody that knows anything about human anatomy, you find the elements that are in our flesh, are in the earth. What does it say in the Bible? When man dies, from the earth he came, unto the earth he will return. Craziness, I know, but it's eye-opening. So they fashioned man, okay? In this Genesis narrative, they fashioned man, and they put their DNA into, okay, let me back up. The sapiens that were here on Earth, okay, when they came here, there was these beings that were walking around on the Earth, okay, and they fashioned these elements with these beings, and we know that in the narrative of the Eridu Genesis, that they took this DNA, they fashioned it with their own, put it in these beings, and they kept trying and trying and trying, mating them, binding them with these animals, binding them with these other creatures, getting and splicing and putting DNA together, and it just wasn't working. And they said, okay, this is not going to happen. We need to give them. Enki's the one that was like We need to give them our essence. Let them be like us, okay? Because, I mean, we can walk around, we're smart, we got minds. Let them be like us, and they will be able to freely take care of everything. We'll let them start learning how to manage the animals, separate them and put them in flocks, start harvesting them, do farming. We'll teach them how to build houses. We'll teach them how to do things so they can survive. He was like pretty much on the side of the creation. And as I said, his brother-in-law was like, I don't care, but we don't need to have them be so smart, okay, that they are exactly knowledgeable as us. They cannot live long. Okay, this comes later is when they start taking mankind's DNA structure and they cut it down. But Anu, the head god, the father, where you get the word Yahweh from, because later on down in the lineage, that's who they call Yahweh, is Anu. Listen to me now. I know a lot of people are sitting here going, oh, hell no. Click off. As I said, I'm not sitting here telling you, yes, this is, you take it for what you want. I'm just giving you the facts. Go and look at it for yourself. Okay? Please. Please, please, please. I'm passionate about this because it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. Now, Anu said, yes, let's do it. So they took their DNA, spliced it, put it with these hominids, altered it. And as I said before, Greg Braden, if you've ever seen him, okay, on Gaia, this man is amazing. Here he is right here. Greg Braden, in his book, The God Code, he talks about how in our DNA, literally in our DNA, there is code structures that are built within us. We don't know how it got there. We do know that we have certain genes that have shut off our memory from past events because it's in there. You have things like the pineal gland that is literally a third eye. Why would that be put inside of us? And people are just like, oh, well, it doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. Baloney. There are things in our body, things that we as human beings were designed for specifically because of our DNA that was given to us, altered so we weren't exactly like the gods and capable of doing things that were not what they wanted. They wanted us to be subservient and worship them as gods, Enki and Enlil. Okay, so they make them. Then we have these other gods that were around with them, and in the Bible it gives their name and says that they knew that they were going to be in trouble for doing what they did. But let's go on a little bit more. It says that cities were soon built and kingship was instituted on earth. For some reason or however, the gods determined to destroy mankind with a flood. Enki, Akkadian, or who did not agree with this decree, revealed it to Ziusudra, who we know is in the Epic of Gilgamesh as Utnapishtim, and in the Bible, okay, he's known as Noah. Here we go again with this passing down of the lineage of the names, and then they change it because the Hebrews were like, well, we got to give this man a name. His name was we'll call him Noah. But in actuality, the Sumerian tablets of Eridu predate the Bible, and his name was Utnapishtim. He was a man that was well known for his humility and his obedience. Ziusudra did as Enki commanded, and he built a huge boat in which he successfully rode out of the flood. Afterward, he prostrated himself before God, An or Anu. And Enlil, as a reward for living a good life, Ziusudra was given immortality. That's just a basic narrative sum, but it goes deeper. Because you see in this book, or in the Book of Giants, or in the ancient where they got it from, Unapishtim, it says that they gave him more mortality. Enlil, because he was so outraged because he was the one who caused the flood. Because we see that these fallen angels, these other some Anunnaki gods, went down and were mating with these women and giving them the knowledge of weapons, the knowledge of brass, metallurgy, alchemy, magic, how to make themselves beautiful, painting their face, because these hominids were just going around and being slaves. They were just doing what they were told, farming. But these Anunnaki, these angels, saw these women and were like, we got to take them because, if we're gods, we can do what we want. But they were stuck thereafter and they could not go back. So the angels that were teaching this corruptedness, because they were giving them this knowledge, they were giving them this knowledge of warfare, and man became corrupted. Their seed and their DNA became contaminated. And we see that the angels came to, the giants, the Nephilim, started having dreams about a flood. And they were so worried. Mawe, I believe is what his name is, the son of Barakel, one of the fallen leaders that made the pact to do this, was the son of Barakel. He had a dream, and Mawe went and told the other giants and the angels, the watchers, hey, look, I had a dream. The great waters descended and rose out of the earth, and we were all destroyed, but 3 were left alive. Now in the Bible it says that Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives were on the ship, the boat, whatever the heck you want to call it. But in the ancient Sumerian, it just says that him and his wife and their sons were the only ones that got on. Because it says in there that Enlil was made to grab Ziusudra, Unapishtim, Noah, and said, you go down here and make this right because you just wiped out my creation without my authority. Now that is how the Antediluvian age was wiped out. Before the creation. But Unapishtim stayed alive. And we have people that were made by these Anunnaki gods, where you get the Genesis story that was adapted, from these ancient texts that predate them by thousands of years. And a lot of people, I know it's hard because a lot of people that are religious, they're narrow-minded. And they say, oh yeah, well, there were people here. Well, who created them if this God of yours was the God who created them? But it gives them a name in these Sumerian tablets. And it says that it wasn't a God, a creator. There is an all-creator being. But these were just fake gods who came from a planet and started inhabiting this earth, saw that they had riches here, that they could live as gods, rule over these creations that were here walking around, and decided to go ahead and just stay because their planet wasn't fit for them to stay in. It was being depleted. So they came here, and the story is that the Anunnaki were harvesting gold and using these creations to do the labor and the work of this planet for them. And in return, they were giving them knowledge. And then man started turning around saying, you know, we ain't got to be fucking slaves. We're going to revolt. And this is when you get Enlil saying, oh, you're going to turn against us, huh? They started seeing that they started uprising and there was chaos on it, on the earth. Men were complaining. As I said, why do I got to be doing this crap? Screw this. Why don't we live as kings? We'll worship ourselves. We'll make ourselves, we'll have a king to worship. And that's when you start getting the whole thing of, uh, uh, like you see in the movie with, um, but here, anyway, I'll let you look at it. Let's check this video out and we'll talk a little bit about it. Because I'm ranting and raving and I'm going to try and get back on task here. All right. So this is a video of the Antediluvian age and the land before the Great Flood, and we'll check it out and talk about it a little bit. There we go.
Diluvian civilizations, societies that may have flourished in a world before a great deluge swept across the earth. These ancient cultures, shrouded in the mist of time, beckon with a siren's call, promising to reveal secrets about our origins and the true nature of human history. As we embark on this journey, we tread a path lined with myths, legends, and archaeological enigmas, each offering a piece of the puzzle of our forgotten past. In this episode of Ancient Civilizations, courtesy of Gaia, we dive deep into the forgotten past of the human civilization.
Now, as I said before, if you're looking, please do. I'm going to put this video, I'm going to put the snippet inside of the comments and you guys can check it out for yourselves. Okay, is that we know that you got Easter Island, you've got the pyramids, you've got the Mayans, you've got Machu Picchu, and you've got these epic buildings in Peru on these mountaintops that are, I mean, look at the dimensions and the astrological alignments of these buildings. You've got buildings in India, in China, in Russia, okay, that predate humans and predate human civilization by thousands of years, folks. But the mainstream narrative does not want to believe that, okay, there was a civilization that was way more advanced than who we are now. Why? Because they want to keep control over us now. If we don't know about the greatness of these people and where we come from, our cultures, because you find that the people that were supposedly killed in the flood, they didn't all die. They survived. They wiped out a majority of them, yes. But it even says in ancient texts that they did not die. There were people that still survived. And this is why you get all these ancient structures, all these sites around the world that are still standing today. It's amazing. Because if they were there and they were given this knowledge, not by the biblical God, please understand what I'm saying, because I'm giving you information that's outside of that box. Please choose to go out there and check it out for yourselves. Because like I said, we've all been given a narrative. We've all been given this stuff to just swallow and just go along with it. Don't question it. Don't even freaking think about looking at something else. Oh, it's not God. It's not, it's from the devil. It's Satanism, yada, yada. Please. All I'm saying is take the facts for what they are and and look at it for yourselves. Let's continue on with the video.
A past wiped up by the great flood that swept across the earth.
Planet Earth. According to radiometric dating, this planet is roughly 4.5 billion years old.
4.5.
Modern-day scholars claim that civilization began roughly between 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. Geological records show that severely erratic weather patterns were present on the planet roughly 12,000 years ago. Countless myths and legends from around the planet depict a time of complete chaos that destroyed all civilizations on the planet. The deluge, the cataclysm, the event, the end of the world. Along with these great fables, ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Easter Island in the South Pacific, South America, Giza Plateau, Japan and India contain a level of sophistication and design that baffles the minds of scholars and scientists. Most of these sacred sites have foundations composed of stones weighing in excess of 30 tons that defy our human understanding. If civilization only happened roughly 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, then who built these foundational wonders in pre-Diluvian times that were designed to survive the end of the world? And what were those beings who inhabited the earth long before the flood trying to tell us about our connection to the cosmos? We turn to science for answers to help unravel the mystery. But when we look below the surface, the laws of physics appear to have been mastered long before humanity began to figure them out.
Science is information.
Here he is. This man figured out, like I said, in this God code book, through research, analysis, looking at scripture, ancient, biblical scripture, and ancient texts and narratives, not just from the Hebrew language, or this is all over. Okay? And I love the fact that he backs up his evidence or his data with hard evidence in both fields. In religious narratives, because these religious narratives were taken from ancient texts, and says, hey, look, folks, this stuff is much older. Okay? And these gods and these creators that you're looking at are actually these ancient deities, gods, extraterrestrials that came not from here, but from somewhere else. And it's really hard for people to break out of their mind, the narrowness and open their mind and realize that what people are trying to say is look, what you're thinking is a holy or a, religious narrative is actually something that is a lot older and is based in hard fact. And this is where he's going to get in and talk to us about these people, these gods, these creations that were here before what we were told, this mainstream narrative told us. These people were here and way more advanced than what we know.
It's not static. It's not fixed. It's designed to be constantly updated. When new discoveries come to light, we've got to incorporate those discoveries into the pre-existing scientific story.
Yes.
We're writing a new story right now. We have to, because the evidence no longer supports the story of the past.
Yes.
The evidence no longer supports the theory that civilization, for example, began between 5,000 and 5,500 years ago. The evidence no longer supports that civilization's rise has been linear, that we began with primitive settlements and primitive ways of building society and have gradually come to where we are today in a linear fashion. So when we're thinking about our past, we have to constantly update the story. There is a continuity in the stories that cannot be dismissed. One of those continuities is the story of the Great Flood. This is where our new story begins.
So when we're talking pre-Diluvian times, do we mean antediluvian? Because diluvian means the deluge, the great flood, and pre, of course, means before. But when we say antediluvian, it is A-N-T-E, interior, in front of, the anterior chain of your body. So when we say antediluvian, it is in front of the great deluge. So when we say pre-diluvian, antediluvian, we know that this is a time period before the great flood. They're one and the same.
In the beginning, after
amazing.
a great devastation, according to the Sumerian text, the gods came and manifested humans again. And this is a theme that we see repeated many times in many cultures all over the world, that there was a creation of humans, there was and the earth was repopulated. That's reflected in the Babylonian text, in the Hebrew text, in the Egyptian text. They all mention something similar.
When you do a deep survey into the myths from around the world, you actually find that there are two different flood narratives that happened. And the very first flood narrative, it talks about a dark world or a beginning and the end of an age. And there's this cataclysm and this flood occurs and escapes and Abigail. And then after that is the beginning of this golden age and this new period of time. Noah flood and because they're trying to, you find in the biblical narrative.
Exactly.
And Noah survived the flood, and there's no mention of these 7 sages or 7 Abigails.
So in South America, we have the tradition of Viracocha, who is a builder god that suddenly shows up mysteriously after a global flood wiped everything out. And he appears in specific locations with a group of 7 specialists. They're experts in their fields, because wherever civilization appeared on the face of the earth after the flood, and is always one charismatic leader who leads 7 craftspeople, experts in their field.
Throughout the ages in mythology and spirit traditions, there are several common themes that keep repeating. But the ancient cycles encoded in nature, as well as embedded in myth, us that if we are to survive on this planet, we must be prepared to change and adapt.
There are common themes that run through all of these stories. One of those themes is that civilization is cyclic rather than linear. There have been previous cycles of civilization that have lasted for approximately 5,000 years. Something happens, those cycles come to an end, a new cycle begins. This is where it gets really interesting, because even though the cycles change, there appears to be a continuity of knowledge, a continuity of wisdom when it comes to the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next. The Mayans divided one precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000 year cycle approximately, into 5,125 year long cycles. Each of those cycles, when they begin, something happens to civilization during that time. And one of the questions that historians have asked is, could there be something that drives these cycles? Is there a cosmological phenomenon? Is there a climactic phenomenon? Is there a geologic phenomenon? Maybe it's a convergence of all of the phenomena. Something happens every 5,125 years. Well, if we take the year 2012 as the end of one 5,125 year long cycle, and we go back in time to 5,000 years previously, this would be the time that we traditionally have been taught that civilization began 5,500 years ago. Now, new discoveries are revealing the remnants of ancient civilizations that predate that 5,000 years many, many times.
One of the things that's echoed in the ancient stories around the world, whether it's not it's Plato talking about Atlantis, or the ancient Egyptians and the Temple of Sais, is that we find that they discuss how these events have come in many different ways. They discuss how the civilizations have been destroyed from periods of great flooding, but also extreme heat and fire. So it's not just about one thing, it's about a totality of all of these different catastrophic events that have led to the disappearance and destruction of these pre-Diluvian civilizations. And the way that we have the telltale evidence is that a lot of these ancient megalithic structures from the pre-Diluvian civilizations that left behind
Listen up, folks.
is that
Listen
we
to what
find
he's saying.
what's known as vitrification on the surface, whether or not it's Egypt or Peru or Turkey. And what that means is that those granite blocks and the quartz that was in them literally melted for such an extreme heat event that in order to do that, you have to have temperatures on the surface that would have exceeded 2,000 degrees.
Whoa!
Researchers and
Wow.
mythological heroes on a journey have
That
long
is
looked to the
crazy.
sky for answers to explain what happened in the past. But most spiritual traditions and mythical journeys carry core messages that inspire us to also go within to find our answers. Starting in the early 20th century, scientists have been studying ice core samples from the polar regions of the planet. From 1989 to 1995,
Yes.
the Greenland Ice Core Project conducted experiments to understand the climate patterns in that area.
So they're getting into another touchy subject, okay, is that, like he said, every 5,000 years, there's a cycle of events that is happening. And we're looking at possibly coming up into this age, and they're going to talk about that. But you heard how Matthew LaCroix was saying that they found even on the Great Sphinx and other sites around the world that you find that this quartz, okay, now this quartz is a crystal. It's very, very hard. They find that this crystal was melted, and the way that it got melted, it had to be in excess of 2,000 degrees of the heat, the extremity of this heat to melt the quartz on the surface of these structures. I mean, and you're looking at these civilizations, and we know that a lot of these things are old. And they're finding evidence that there were civilizations that were on this planet through these cycles. Okay? Older generations of people and creations that were on the planet. They're finding the hard facts, the evidence. This is amazing.
For approximately the
It breaks
past
everything that we know,
100,000
as
years.
we've been told.
Again, in 1998, the collaborative ice drilling project at the Russian Vostok station in East Antarctica uncovered the deepest ice core ever recorded, revealing climate data for approximately the past 420,000 years. Then, in 2017, an ice core taken from the Blue Ice Field in the Allen Hills of Antarctica revealed ice dating to roughly 2.7 million years old. These studies provide geologists with a clear understanding of the cyclical nature of Earth's climate and weather patterns. Geologists refer to the past and current epochs as the Pleistocene and the Holocene.
The Pleistocene epoch began about 2.8 million years ago, and this is the sheets of ice that we often talk about, covered North America, Greenland, Northern Europe.
Listen to what he's saying,
That
folks. This is
period,
important.
that epoch, ended about 11,500 years ago as we began the current epoch that we're in now, which is called the Holocene. However, when we go from one epoch to another, it's not a clean break. There's a transition period, there's a buffer between the two, and that buffer is the mystery that helps us to understand what happened in these ancient civilizations.
Wow.
Between
I love
12,800 years ago and 11,600 years ago,
predating what
that
we know
little
now,
window
folks.
of time is an extraordinary period of time that geologists call the Younger Dryas. There are plant species that only exist in cold. One of those plants is called the Dryas, and this is where the term the Younger Dryas comes from. There is evidence of the Younger Dryas far down into North America, down into Northern Europe, suggesting that these were cold temperatures during this period of time. And when the temperatures began to warm, the plants disappear from that period of time. In the late Pleistocene, the time of the Ice Age peaked about 20,000 years before present, and the temperatures began to warm. The warming melted the ice. Then something happened that is a mystery to this day. The warming stopped, and all of a sudden, the temperatures dropped. They plunged about 5 degrees Celsius over the entire northern hemisphere. And in that shift, the temperatures plunged for a period of time, about 1,200 years.
All right. So as you're hearing Greg Braden talking about the shifts um, in the younger Dryas between what we're in, what we're in and what was then now, they have these cycles because there's a couple people that probably just joined us and haven't seen or are catching up to what we're talking about right now. If you want, you can go ahead and rewind the video and watch it through, or you could just wait until later and pick it up and watch it again. But this is one thing that really got me because I was, like I said, when I looked at that whole thing with Cain being out of Eden, I thought to myself, who were these people that were here? And to me, I think that was just a clue or a ticket to look into this and say, hey, we're not going to tell you that there were other people here and that there were other civilizations. We're just going to leave that little tidbit in there and you could check it out for yourself, kind of thing. Because why would you even put that in there? It's like they knew about it, okay? And I'm talking about these men who wrote the Bible, because you got to remember this was during the King James time, the bidding between the King James and King Henry in England, and you had all these different sects that were just, the church in Scotland, and you had, them coming and the come on, the battle for Jerusalem, and they were, battling between each other because they had all this information. And then you had King James, King Henry, he had his Bible and what he wanted it to be. He even had a picture of himself inside of the Bible with, these two servants on both of his throne, pretty much saying like, well, this is going to be my truth. And then you had King James, who came along and had his people narrate it and adapt and take out and put what they wanted into it, and it was changed, and a lot of things were left out. And we find, like I said, at the beginning of this story, you hear them talking about Cain leaving and going into the land of Nod. Why? Because they were adapting it and they knew about all of this stuff that they're talking about here on Gaia, that you see in the book of Giants, that you see in the book of Enoch, which was left out of the Bible, that discusses all of this. They left this out intentionally because they did not want you to have the knowledge of this information that empowers you, that tells you, hey, look, this happened. This is where you come from. This is the source of all creation here, folks. They left it out for a reason, and they did not want anybody to know because they wanted the control. They put a spin on the narrative, okay? And now we're stuck in this cycle of being subservient to the idea of something that was not true. And I'm saying it's not true in a sense because the words that were interpreted by what was going on were made to look like there was one God, one deity. Okay? And we find that if you do your research, just like I told you, come on now, if you do your research and you look back, Before Abraham's time, they were nomadic, pagan, Canaanite people. They were worshiping multiple gods. Multiple. Not one, not two, but hundreds. And these gods were literally the beings that came to this planet. And we're telling these people because they had all this power and they were coming up in these ships and they were doing all this crazy stuff that these people didn't understand. And they were giving them this knowledge. And as you heard Greg Baden say, every 5,000 years, it seems like they were going through a cycle of destruction and death and being totally wiped out because something was happening. He's going to get into why these things were happening. It wasn't a godly thing per se, but it was natural catastrophes that were happening that were wiping these people out.
There are many theories around what caused these drastic climate changes of the Younger Dryas period. One of the prevailing theories is named the Clovis Comet Hypothesis, claiming that fragments of a large asteroid or comet struck the planet. Another theory involves a cataclysmic event in our solar system.
Yes.
Currently, between Mars and Jupiter
Listen to this.
is what is referred to as the asteroid belt. Throughout antiquity, numerous astronomers speculated that this is a result of a previously existing planet that was destroyed. In the ancient Babylonian cuneiform text, the Enuma Elish, this watery planet, described as being similar to Earth, is referred to as Tiamat. Throughout history, this
Now, he was saying in the Enuma Elish, now these ancient tablets, okay, as I said, folks, I did my, I'm looking at the stuff, I'm reading these books, and I'm going through, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, I'm sitting here with my wife, and I'm reading her this stuff, and I'm going, this sounds just exactly like what they're interpreting in the Bible, but this is ancient. And it makes more sense because it goes in depth. It talks about who these people were, what these incidences that happened on the planet, how it was caused. And as I said, folks, take it for what you want. I'm just giving you the information because it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I was told was wrong. Because if you talk about something that's not with the narrative, you're shunned, you're condemned, you're kicked out, you're called a conspiracy theorist, you're called a weirdo, you're called everything in the book. Because you're going outside of the narrative and finding answers to what is linking to the puzzle. Okay? And this is how I feel. I'm going to put it in a perspective. It might sound weird or funny or whatever, but it's like you're making a puzzle, right? You're shown this picture and it's only this big. But it goes like this picture right here of the moon, this planet. You're just seeing that planet, but there's so much more that's happening around that planet. But they're telling you that this picture, what's right there, what you see, that's it. And you're like, wait a minute, there's got to be more to this. And you find that there's other planets. There's other planets with life on them. There's other life in other galaxies. There's visitors that came from these other places and played a big part of the creation of what we now know as humanity. And it like I said, when you start researching it and you look into it, it makes sense. I'm not trying to sit here and downplay anybody's faith because there is a creator. I do believe in that. I believe that there is one almighty deity, a being that is a universal creator. And there are deities that play that are a part of that universal creation. Like you hear about the Anunnaki and extraterrestrials and whatever. Now that's another story I'm going to get into because that's another episode and we're going to get into that too. But listen to what they're saying about everything that leads up. That's, that tells you one thing about that's in here. One thing that's in here, that the beginning of what is. It's like a buildup, right? Oh, it's telling you where the people of Israel came from, and God's plan for them, and these people that they picked out, that God was telling to do this for these people, and they worshiped him, and he said that there be no other gods before me, that you will worship only me. Do you understand that that stuff is exactly what was said in the Enuma Elish? That Enki and Lil and Anu were the gods that they were worshiping, calling them Yahweh, that was adapted by them. Oh man, we're going to get into that later on, but let's continue the video. We'll check this out.
The mysterious planet has been given other names, such as Planet V, Phaeton, Muldek, and Mulj. If there was a planet that was destroyed, could some of the debris from that massive explosion have fallen to Earth, creating massive changes to the balance of our planet?
Recent evidence has revealed that Earth was hit multiple times during this period of time with something from the cosmos. It is believed to be a comet for this reason.
I love it.
If it were an asteroid, the asteroid would have a single impact. It would be more localized. But what we're finding is that whatever it was that was coming into Earth's atmosphere was fragmented, and it broke up and scattered across multiple continents at the same time. The mineral platinum, for example, is relatively rare on Earth, but you find it in comets. As far south as South Africa, there are remnants, fragments of platinum from this comet breakup that match those that are found in Northern Europe. A large crater has been found in Greenland for precisely the same time. So when we look at the theories of what triggered the younger dryas, it may be that the impact of the comet and the heat generated by that impact, thousands and thousands of degrees, created a rapid melt to cool water in the North Atlantic.
One of the things we find is that
Matthew
ocean levels dramatically rose from before the pre-Diluvian period of 13,000 years ago. And we know that looking at geologic and climatological records, whether or not it's ice cores or looking at geologic evidence.
Wow.
What we find is that during this time period, we had glaciation in North America and in Europe, where we had massive ice caps. So when we combine cataclysmic events in our solar system, as mentioned in the Enuma Elish, with massive amounts of rain, as well as melting of the ice caps, all that water flooded into the ocean, raising sea levels up to 400 feet, flooding and submerging ancient cities and structures around the world.
There you go.
The Atlantic Ocean is home to the global conveyor belt, starting from the surface water around the...
And as he was saying, it goes into the Enuma Elish, but it also states that the gods were the ones who created these catastrophes. It caused these comets. What if they had broken up, or they had did something where they caused this comet or these incidences to happen around the planet that had an effect, and then in turn destroyed everything that they had created or were creating? Because you see throughout history that things were happening. You have like the Golden Age, the Bronze Age, etc., etc., etc. These different time periods. What if this stuff is real? What if it's ancient stuff that happened like they're saying, 12,000 years ago? But we were told in a narrative that it was only, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, and that's it. Why? Because like he said, every 5,000 to 6,000 years, the cycles were being destroyed. So wouldn't it make sense that these stories that we're hearing throughout our lifetime about these ancient people are actually old stories from these ancient civilizations? Why? Because people survived, and the stories continued throughout time.
The North Pole. This circulation system pulls water from the North Pole and cycles it all throughout the planet.
So when we're looking at the mystery of the Younger Dryas, what we know for certain is that there was a dilution of fresh water and cold water that changed the thermohaline properties of the ocean conveyor of the Atlantic. We know that because of the proxies and the temperature. The mystery is what single factor or what multiple factors may have contributed to that cooling. The meltwater from North America, from the ice melting, was behind a large ice wall. And the evidence shows that that ice wall broke. And when it broke, there was a tremendous onslaught of that cold water, a massive flood in a relatively short period of time. What may have triggered that could have been the impact from the comet.
As the mystery continues around the origin of the deluge, what can ancient mythology tell us about the changing relationship between humans and the gods around these chaotic times?
Prior to the flood, there is this global narrative that occurs, and the stories are extremely consistent regardless of the culture that you're looking at. Post-flood, it changes into more local myths, or the perspective of the myths change. In the earlier myths, it's the stories of the gods. You know, they're vying for power with each other and fighting, and you're part of the action of the gods. Once the flood happens, it becomes stories of humanity and their connection to the gods.
Okay, listen to what she's saying. I'm going to replay this, okay, because she's saying that if you're missing it, she's saying that before these things happened, there was a different connection between what we believe as these gods or these gods. You see what I'm saying? And it changed because the narrative of what people on the planet were telling and how it got passed down and yada yada. But it got distorted. It got distorted. Let me go back. I'll play this real quick.
Relatively short period of time, what may have triggered that could have been the impact from the comet.
As the mystery continues around the origin of the deluge, what can ancient mythology tell us about the changing relationship between humans and the gods around these chaotic times?
Prior to the flood, there is this global narrative that occurs, and the stories are extremely consistent regardless of the culture that you're looking at. Post-flood, it changes into more local myths, or the perspective of the myths change. In the earlier myths, it's the stories of the gods. You know, they're vying for power with each other and fighting, and you're part of the action of the gods. Once the flood happens, it becomes stories of humanity and their connection to the gods. And so it's just a really big change that happens.
One thing that is starting to crystallize among researchers of our ancient past, especially the pre-flood times, is the number of places, of temples that are rebuilt on previous temple sites. We find this in Egypt, we find it at Stonehenge, and we also find it at Dwarka. And what this suggests is that the ancients knew of the original locations of temples in the pre-flood times, marked those locations, and then after the flood, or after this great cataclysm, returned to those exact same sites. This suggests that there is something inherently special about Dwarka and some of these other sites that was known to either the ancient gods that inhabited it, or they passed this knowledge along to humans, prompting them to rebuild on these specific sites.
We know that the Ice Age essentially ended about 12,000 BP before present. But what is often missed is that when the Ice Age ended, not only did the ice continue to melt, but there was a tremendous shift in the climate. And with a shift in global climate comes a shift in local weather. The shifts in the weather were called unsettled weather patterns that lasted approximately 4,000 years. So beginning from 12,000 years BP before present to 8,000 years BP. This was a period where Earth saw torrential rains in some places, extreme drought in other places, and with those torrential rains from the storms, torrential erosion that left impacts and effects that we're still seeing today that impact not only archaeological remains and remnants of archaeological remains, but also the landform itself.
This mysterious time in history continues to challenge mythologists, scholars, and scientists. From the erosion patterns around the Sphinx in Giza to the sunken cities off the coasts of Japan and India, water has played a major role in the evolution and destruction of civilizations on this planet. When we begin to study the sites around the world that were built before these great cataclysms, archaeologists continue to discover that they were built with a purpose that is beyond our understanding. Powerful clues point to a strong cosmic connection with the builders and the locations of these archaeological wonders, leaving behind carved connections linking these ancient pre-Diluvian cultures from all over the planet.
So this is where we get to the work of David Talbot, who noticed around the Younger Dryas period that there were some major cataclysmic electrical events going on all over the planet, that there were these plasma discharges that could be from solar flares or other form of celestial activity causing these plasma bursts throughout our atmosphere. And they noticed that in Mohenjo-Daro, they recorded those exact same shapes of those plasma bursts. And it didn't stop there. There are petroglyphs all over the world with the same exact shapes telling us that this was a worldwide plasma event that was documented and recorded by countless cultures, including the people of Easter Island in their Rongo-Rongo script.
We begin to look at ancient cosmology and archaeoastronomy, and what we find is from the Mayans to the Egyptians, to the Aboriginals in Australia, to an ancient European site, and all through Mesoamerica, there was a knowledge of our relationship to the cosmos that exceeded anything that's been known in history until the mid-20th century.
Constellations feature throughout alignments with ancient sites. The two go hand in hand. It was look into the Earth for her energy system and look into particular constellations. So I think the river of, space, if you will, the river that flows from Orion especially. Orion is the focus point here between the Milky Way and between the Celestial River.
An understanding of the constellations around the planet provides solid evidence in deciphering the possible time and purpose of these sites. When modern researchers began discovering cosmic connections to powerful ancient civilizations, the evidence began guiding us to the stars as our major influence in the evolution of civilizations on this planet. As the archaeologists and scholars examine several of these sacred celestial sites around the world, there is one unifying clue that teaches us the power of interconnection: massive stones.
When we look at ancient cultures around the world, especially those that we can identify have the pre-Diluvian megalithic sophistication on those foundations, when we look at the stories that are left behind, whether or not it's written in cuneiform tablets or carried down through oral records, they all seem to tell a very similar, if not the same, story of these great set of catastrophes and floods that seem to have destroyed those civilizations and left behind those megalithic foundation bases for us to find thousands and thousands of years later. Whether or not it's all the way from Asia and places in Japan, all the way across the world to Peru and Bolivia, in Egypt and Turkey, we find a very specific style of building that is present on almost always the lower levels of ancient temples and structures, where it shows a high level of sophistication that's unlike anything that's above it. Something that truly stands out with a sophistication and style that is almost perfect, and something that we may not even be able to do today with the tools that we have available. Something that's so precise that some of the blocks that are in position, a human hair can't even slip between them.
Comparing pre-Diluvian construction from all over the planet not only challenges the mainstream theory of the origins of civilization, but solidifies the evidence of an interconnection of knowledge between cultures long before the Great Deluge. Who were these beings with this advanced building knowledge that could move these massive stones? The question is no longer if these sacred megalithic sites around the planet were built before the Great Flood. The greater mystery is, how long before the flood were they built?
In a number of myths, one of the things we find is that there's no cultural memory in humanity of how they made these megalithic structures. There's no recollection of the engineering technology that's required to create these structures and lift stones a certain way, because it wasn't their technology. It was the gods' technology. And so that's why we can't do it again.
Etched in the human psyche are stories of struggle and pain to conquer and rule different sections of this planet. Separation, division, and control became the dominant benchmark to gauge the success of a civilization, making it easy to forget how everything is interconnected. Most Western maps have been arranged around the prime meridian, showing the Americas on the left. But as the connections between ancient civilizations become more apparent, the map must shift back to the time where the unification of the planet can be seen and felt as the one divided into the many. The ice melted, creating new islands and covering old ones. As civilization began rebuilding, the division on the planet grew stronger. Turning back our celestial clock, we discover that whatever label humanity tries to put on this deluge period in history, there are foundational story points that connect all to a very volatile time on the surface of the planet. But when the hands of time go back to the time before the end of the world, the clues in archaeology and tales told in heroes' epic journeys around the planet show that most civilized structures eventually fall. But to uncover the fundamental ancient knowledge that ties the whole story together, the hero must return back to the foundations where the story begins.
Books, you see that it's more to the story than what is being given to us. The narrative starts to fit. It starts becoming pieces of the puzzle that collaborate with a bigger picture, the bigger narrative. And as he said at the end of that video, when the hero goes out and he's finding the answers to this stuff, he returns to the culture from where he came, shares it with the people, and spreads that knowledge. And so it was with these ancient civilizations. They were sharing this knowledge with people. They were traversing the continent at times. And when these great deluges came, you see that these gods were coming down and they were telling these people, hey, look, there's a goddamn flood. There's a catastrophe that's coming. You need to prepare. This comet's going to hit. It's going to destroy a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of flooding. It's going to burn. And as they said, those quartz crystals melted at 2,000 degrees. Could you imagine what would happen if a comet that powerful hit? And it's possible because, like I said, that clock cycle, we are nearing that. And that makes you think, What more do these people in the government, the shadow governments, these high officials who are running everything, who are storing this knowledge away and not giving it to people? But you see it in the ancient texts, the Book of Giants, Enoch, the Enuma Elish. These ancient Sumerian texts talking about it, and even in India. There is so much information from different cultures, like they were saying, that talks about the same narrative, just different cultures. And the one thing that I always tell everybody on this podcast is I want to share the knowledge and the information that is out there. Talk about subjects that people don't want to talk about in their mainstream circles because they're afraid to get shunned or talked about as a weirdo, like you're a freak. Why is it that we have to sit here and play tip? what I'm saying? They shut down the internet all the time. When I start getting into this stuff, it glitches. It just shut off and came back on. How crazy is that, right? And they do it all the time. But like I said, before you end up passing from this life, please, it's like they say in the Bible, and this is spiritual. This is not just religious. This is truth. You want to be saved. You want to be able to pass from this life with the knowledge that you are going to be able to live on. It's not the end, folks. It's just the beginning. Cherish this life and experience it for what it is. Life. The precious moments that we have. The things that make us mad. The things that we go through. The things that piss us off. You wake up and think, fuck. I got to go through this. I got to do this again. Think. Because one day we're going to be gone. To wake up and realize that everything that we've done in our life is a precious moment every single day. The experience that we have and the knowledge that we pass on to our children. Don't be slaves to the system. Be a master of your own destiny. Be a master of your own energy, your life, who you are. We don't need to slave away to the system for somebody else. We don't need to kill ourselves or send our children to go fight in wars for somebody else's political gain. That means nothing. None of this stuff means anything. It's all physical. It's going to deteriorate. It's going to be gone. But what we have in here and what we have in here and who we are inside, is what's going to remain. So I appreciate you. Thank you guys for coming along. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that we're able to talk and share these topics. And there's going to be a heck of a lot more. And get prepared. Let me know what you want to hear, and let me know what you want to discuss about what your interests are, things that you find incredibly weird or awkward or are of significant interest to you. Facebook, let me know on YouTube. Get a hold of me. Let me know, folks. And like I said, like and subscribe. And we're gonna grow this thing. We're gonna be enlightened wonders. And I just want to say thank you guys. Everything that we do here is to be able to share this information with everybody. And it's great when you find out that other people are interested and they're excited about the things that we discuss here. And like I said, we're not alone. We are not alone. The Seekers, that's why I named this podcast Seekers of the Unknown. We're finding the truth. Together we're looking at things, we're figuring it out. We're coming to the conclusion that, hey, we're finding stuff out. We're waking up to the reality of what is. And it's an amazing time. Got my Kool-Aid. It's an amazing time, and I'm really glad that sharing these interests with people, friends, strangers, and loved ones, family members. And I want to say thank you to my wife. I love her to death. She puts up, like I said before, I say it on every episode, and I think this is going to be my closing subject every time I close. Is I love her because we sit down together and we talk about craziness all the time. But it ain't craziness. Because we feel it in our soul. We feel it inside of our being. That the reality of who we are and where we're at there's so much more to this story, and her and I find it out. We research it and talk about it together. And there's times when I feel like Jesus, she's just like, shut the hell up. Tired of it. But she puts up with it because she thinks about it as well. And all my friends, all my family members who watch the podcast on YouTube, who follow me, thank you guys. I mean, this is my passion. I love it to death. And, once I find work and I'm able to get back out there and do stuff, I've been home taking care of our daughter who has special needs, and she's one of our miracle babies. That to me is showing signs of something that is greater in all of us. Her struggle to be something that people said she would never be able to do: walk, talk, be able to function like a normal child. She's breaking those barriers every day. J.R. Stone, I appreciate you, man. That's right. This is our job, folks. I mean, it's not our job, but it's the essence of who we are as humanity. Being a combat vet, and I'm still going, I was like, man, I'm going to get off right now. But I mean, people are watching. This is what I'm saying. There's so many of us. The essence of who we are is binding not just to ourselves, but to everyone. We see these riots in the Ukraine, and these people are upset about the situation that's happening in the Ukraine, or in Great Britain, in the UK. People are fighting and killing each other in Palestine. We got a nation slaughtering and completely obliterating. For what? For what? Because you're different than me. I don't like you, so I'm going to get rid of you. Then we got sneakiness happening where these people are tricking everybody and getting them to fall into line. Why? It's like somebody's playing games and causing stuff and wreaking havoc all over the world, and we're just going along with it and suffering and killing ourselves and sending our children and teaching our children. We are spreading their crap through our kids, through our generations, and it's got to stop. We are the ones who make that change. It's not the people telling us, oh, well, you got to do that. It's like I heard one time where this man was saying, those that are chosen, or those who feel it in their soul, it hits them because they've known it all along. It's that essence of, you've grown up and you've seen things, you've experienced things, and you're questioning why. A lot of people get that feeling and get that urge, and then when they understand it, they spread it to other people. Something's going on here, folks. We got to be better than this. And that's what I mean, is that we have got to. Thank you, JR. I just want to say welcome, man. But we've got to be better. We've got to do better for our kids. And I'm not perfect. None of us are, and that is the spectacular thing about it, is that we are not perfect. We have to learn as we go, because this life is about the essence of us experiencing it. It's like they say that the eternal being, the life force that create the essence of the universe, made us in order for it to experience what being in this realm is. We are just walking around experiencing life as it is going on. And as we take this knowledge and this experience of what is happening, and when we die, I don't even gonna say we die, when our body is gone and returns to this realm, our essence goes back to where we came from. Wow, man. When I was on earth, when I was alive, I had a great family. I had a great childhood. My parents were great. I loved my wife with the best of everything. I made mistakes in my life. I drank in excess and I wasted my teen years, or I did things. If I could go back and change them, I could do it. We can, and people can live in that bondage of, man, I should have did more. I screwed my life up, and it's that internal struggle that you carry on. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. That means a lot to me, and just spread the word and keep in contact, and then that's why I said, this is amazing. This is why I love this. This is cool stuff. Thank you. We've got to do better, and to wake people up to the fact that this experience that we call life is much more than what we have been told what we are and what we do, where we come from, and everything. It's amazing to understand and see the reality I can't look at nothing. I look at movies and I'm just like, holy crap. I look at the past and I see things that are just like, this is structured. This is happening. People are planning this. This just doesn't randomly happen. Something is happening with what we're seeing at the Bermuda Triangle, or these assassinations with these presidents, or, everything just, it falls into line. And then you look at things and you see it, and it's like your mind just goes, because it's like, that's not right. That doesn't fit. You look at, you talk about the inner, the hollow earth or the flat earth theory. Those things make you question, because why is it so? Why, what brought that up? I've never been to fucking space. I've never gone there. But I'm only being told about what they say. There are some people who will never, ever, ever get to experience that. But yet they tell you that it happens. That it is what it is. You see what I'm saying? And we've gone through generations of this. And I talk about this in the episode about Tartaria. Fuck. That was even long ago. That's like 200 years ago. They hid this whole freaking culture and history of a people and an empire and completely wiped it out. Destroyed structures in the World War. Got freaking knowledge and destroyed books. Hitler burning books. Yeah. Why would he do that if it wasn't a part of what was being done? To lose and obliterate the knowledge, and it was planned. Nothing doesn't happen it just doesn't happen for no reason. Everything has a purpose. There is nothing under the earth or the heavens that has not happened before. There was nothing new. What is was, and what was is now. We are just going through a cycle. Just different timelines. This is our time. This is our time to freaking figure out and share the word and share the message of what we need to do as a race of human beings. We need to stop this mess. We are screwing up our planet. We are screwing up our kids. We are indoctrinating them with false information that is not going to lead them anywhere. Experience this life. Enjoy it and embrace it. Why? Because this is a plane of our freaking knowledge and we carry it on. It can either damn you and bind your spirit and your essence of who you are and cage you, or you can be free and enlightened and understand that there is more to this. We are eternal. We don't die. You hear people talking about their, I died and I got out of my body and I went to this and that or whatever. Wherever, whatever happens to them. You speak your existence of who you are and what you want. If you want to stick to that narrative of religious thinking, go for it. Do it. Because that's who you are. That's going to be your reality. If you want to believe in reincarnation and that there's multiple gods, then that's going to be your reality. But not everybody is going to be the same, but we are all eternal, and what we know as fact is what you're seeing. Like I'm talking about these beings and the cultures that were before us. That's fact. But they all talk about that the essence of who we are, what was placed into these bodies to experience this realm, because this is our time now. We are experiencing something that happened thousands and thousands and thousands of times before. And I believe with everything in my heart, my whole being, that when I go, I'm coming back. I may not, this plane of existence, for me, in this form, in this time, in this shape, is over when I'm gone. But when I die and I choose to come back, I will go to a different plane and live and experience that life somewhere else, in another time, in another place, in another existence. Why? Because I know I've done it before. I've shared with people in the other episodes about my reincarnation experience. My grandmother's brother or cousin that died in World War II at the age of 23 looked just like me. My family members couldn't explain it, but they were just like, I knew something was up. And I went to combat the same age and almost died the same age. But I didn't. I made it back because I was brought back here to experience the things that were in my past life, to make it better and go on and become better for not only myself, but my future generations on this plane now. To experience it and to make everything right that I fucked up in my last life. Excuse my language. That I screwed up. That's what I feel, because I know in my heart that's what happened. When I was younger, I used to wake up with crazy dreams of crap that I couldn't explain. I can't explain it. But it makes sense to me now with the pieces that I'm putting together. And I know that there's other people out there that don't think that. That's fine, because that's your reality. You speak into existence the things that you want and you make in this life. But please, all I'm asking you to do is just take these tidbits of information and knowledge and look into it. Please. If you do anything in your life, just check it out. Don't stick to the narrative. Don't sit there and be bound to what other people are telling you your reality is. These people are binding every single one of us, and a lot of us are not going to make it out. That's just the reality, because they don't want to be free. And that's crazy, because it's just like in that movie, The Matrix. There are people that cannot break out of that they don't want to be awake. They'll never be awake. That is the struggle between good and evil, because those things that keep us bound, whatever they are, that keep us locked, that you just go, just do what you're told. They want to keep us in that situation. They want us to stay there. They want us to be like that. Why? Because a good slave will work and do what they want. And if they lose that worker or they lose that person to that thought or that idea, that's one less person that's going to freaking be obedient and just continue to be a slave to the system. And you got those Agent Smiths walking around rounding people up. I hate to say it, and it sucks, because a lot of you don't remember Ruby Ridge. A lot of people, this generation, nobody talks about that. That right there is a prime example of a matrix binding freaking Agent Smith type crap I've ever seen in my life. Look it up. Break away from the matrix, break away, get off grid. They don't want that. They do not want that for you. Can you believe that? I'm glad you're here too, man. This is great stuff. I wasn't even going to get into talking on this topic, but it's like it just popped up. Man, if I could just get out of here, take my family and my kids and just go somewhere and just live without freaking having to go through this crap, I would be gone now. And I want to. I want to just break free from this freaking this being connected. We are all connected to this matrix circuit. They got us. They got us. Why do you think it is that things happened throughout the century, throughout our lifetimes? Technology. They don't need to freaking sit there and have people outside your house. They're inside your camera. They're in your phone. They're on your computer. They're in the internet. That's why they freaking wanted you to they wanted to put this shit out there. Because it makes it easier for them to control you, to keep you occupied, to keep your mind freaking off of what was really important, what really matters to you, what is going to freaking make you survive and make you elevate spiritually and consciously, your conscious mind. Y'all going to get me going into this. I'm telling you, this is the bigger scope of everything. Just like it says in the tablets, Sumerian tablets. The god Enki did not want this for us. He wanted us to be free. He wanted us to be knowledgeable and enlightened. But Enlil said, fuck that. These people are going to be my slaves and they're going to work. That is their job. Do you understand? Are you seeing it now? Are you getting the picture? I'm happy y'all are here, man. This is cool. They want you to be a slave. I can't. I'm done with politics. I'm done with what it doesn't matter. It does not matter. These people want you to sit here and keep you focused on this distraction on the side with everything. Hollywood, music industry, fashion, technology, buy a new car, buy a house. If you ain't got money, if you ain't got this, if you ain't got that, you're a bum. You ain't nothing. You see what I'm saying? They keep your mind locked. You got to break out of that. You've got to break out of that thought and that mentality of being a slave to the system. We're killing each other. We're slaving over something that's paper. Money is paper. It doesn't mean anything. But they got you sitting there slaving and going after it. People are killing each other over it. It doesn't mean anything, folks. I don't, I mean, as I said, this episode was just to be on, I'm probably going to have to make a part 2. We're going to have to come back to this. This is good stuff. And, like I said, I wasn't planning on getting into this, but it's like something's telling me to share it, talk about it, speak up. For me, the essence of why I woke up and like I said, with the whole reincarnation thing and growing up and realizing that there was something more to the story. There was something that was going on that I just sat back. This is fucking bullshit. This is not right. And I looked and I could not, when you're a child, you're only limited to certain, you got to be sneaky. You got to get things, because if you get caught, you're getting your ass whipped. Why do you have that? Why are you listening to that? Why are you reading that? That's the devil. It's like that, like in freaking Waterboy. I say this all the time. Look at what they're putting in front of you, because a lot of the times it's easier to hide the truth in plain sight than to freaking not tell you, because people will always, I want to know. So what do? They give it to you in your face because they tell you it's fake. It's a movie. It isn't real. This is an illusion. This is a fantasy realm of mystery. Star Wars. Come on. You see all this stuff that they've been talking about? That ain't new. That's not new. I shared that, they talk about reptilians. I mean, look at Godzilla versus King Kong. I brought that up because that blew me away. I love Godzilla. My son loves it. My kids love that stuff. And I'm sitting there watching it, the new ones, and they're talking about inner Earth. They're talking about these military government railing systems that travel underground, that connect, that are ancient waterways that they found out, and they started using them to traverse through the planet. Alien species that have come down to the earth, that have made contact with human beings, that have made an agreement with the government heads to do things that they wanted to be able to do, and sharing information with them. Tit for tat. Give me something, I'll give you something. Space intergalactic federations that have been around that monitor these solar systems. Project Thor. There's government officials that's unclassified documentation that's been brought out for a long time. These things are here. They talk about human civilization will not be able to advance unless they get their heads out of their butts and start waking up to the vibrational, what we are more capable of doing, and raising where we're at right now. Look at the stupidness that we've got going on in the world. Come on. This is what we've come to. This is what we've bound ourselves to become this? This dumb crap that we see around, this is it? This is who we are? This is nothing better than that? Hell no. We are made for something better than this. We've got to wake up. We've got to make it happen. Because if we don't, right now, we are at the brink of something that is going to catastrophically change our world. It could take something small as a fucking bomb going off somewhere that was planned by somebody to cause a stir up. I'm going to say it right now because I've said it before. Just like my father told me and generations of before us. These people are going to plan something that is going to happen in order to get what they want and keep us bound to the system. Look at what, like I said before, a lot of people don't remember this old stuff. I'm 42. Okay? I don't look at age. I don't act like, my body may be broken because of my time in the service, and I'm not as vibrant as I used to be, but I am in here. But a lot of people don't remember this old stuff. Like I said, Ruby Ridge family went off grid, didn't even want to have nothing to do with the government because the man wanted to break away. What did they do? Oh, he's got ATF. He's got guns in there with his kids. It's unsafe. We got to come in there and take him down, take his guns. The man stood his ground and said, fuck no, you're not. You're the reason why I moved away from here. Why I got away from that mess. I don't want to have nothing to do with that. I just want to live. I just want to be my own. I just want to freaking have my family without having this box of freaking totalitarianism and a freaking ruling society over my head. That was all he wanted. Do you realize that states put laws in order? You can't even grow food in your yard in the city some places. We're buying water, folks, from the store. We're buying fruit, food. We are buying it to further the corporations that are making money. You have to live. If you go and you build a place, you got to freaking log it in. You got to let us know what you're doing. You got to have a license. You got to be able to, you can go into the wilderness without somebody knowing what you're doing. Because if you do, you're going to go to jail for it. You could be in trouble. I've got to sit here and tell people what I'm doing. All right. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Is that good? Hello, hello, hello. All right. Can you guys hear me? All right. There it goes. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, the system has made it so that we can be slaves to what they want. We have to be able to break away from that, to say enough is enough. I'm not going to continue doing this. And we need to become more enlightened. We got to do better for our kids. We've got to do better in order to make it possible for them to thrive and be in a better place. And we're not going to be able to do that if we keep going through the system. If we keep becoming slaves to the system and we keep allowing ourselves to be subservient to the ideas and the philosophies of the lies of these people that are they're just get feeding us bull crap. All of it. And we've got to do better, folks, by like all these people that are going and doing this research, that are making it possible for us to see what is really going on. Spreading that knowledge and that information to us. And that, like they said, like, Greg Braden said, reaching through this right here, we're allowing ourselves to be able to go and say, hey, look, reach people in Japan, China, Australia, England, New Zealand, wherever. Spread the word and the message and say, look, folks, you're better than this. We got to get on board. We got to make this happen. Let's do this. We can make it better. But we can only do it, okay, if we do our research, leading people to that the right path of enlightenment. That's it. That's the only way we'll be able to do it.